Hello everyone, it is Wednesday, May 10th. I'm Pamela Coons at the Wellness Radio TV on the road to wellness. We are here every Wednesday, almost every Wednesday. Last Wednesday we were in Washington, D.C. You saw at the monument, Dr. Martin Luther King Monument. That was fun being there. But today we're back in Gainesville, lovely Gainesville. Truly idyllic weather today. 95 degrees, humidity is lower than it is going to be later on in the year. The farmers market is booming today. People are getting ready for Mother's Day this weekend. Don't forget Mother's Day. Go out and get your gift. We are going to take you around and see some of the wonderful fresh fruits and vegetables these farmers have brought out. Still some winter crops they're picking, some kale and some collards. There's still turnips and rutabagas and those kinds of things. But we're now getting into the tomatoes and strawberries and wonderful different kinds of radishes. I had a watermelon radish, was really good. So support your farmers market. These guys pick this stuff. I passed one of the stands that said just picked. Can't get any fresher than that, than just picked. So support your farmers market in your local community. The farmers will appreciate it, and so will yourselves. We are talking about mental health. As I mentioned before, last week, 2 weeks ago, that July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and I am so excited today to have as my guest Dr. Joe Monson. Dr. Joe Monson is Vice President at Meridian Behavioral Health in Gainesville, Florida, covering 13 counties.
Well, we're stationed in 10 different counties, and we serve about 10.
Okay.
10 to 12, somewhere in that range.
In North Central Florida.
North Central Florida, yeah.
And you guys are doing something that's part of an international effort. First, Thank you, Dr. Monson, for coming down to the farmers market today. I really appreciate it.
It's beautiful out here, like you said.
I know.
It really is.
It is so nice. And what a great place to get a boost to your mental health wellness, right?
Being around people, standing up, moving around more, absolutely.
Inhaling some good fresh air, getting some vitamin D. Yeah. You guys are doing something that I think is just wonderful in your effort to talk about mental health awareness, and it is the First Aid Mental Health Kit.
Right, so Mental Health First Aid is an international program that started roughly 2001 in Australia and was brought to the U.S. in 2008. And so we've been here for almost 10 years doing mental health first aid, and just recently the U.S. has trained 1 million people, which is extremely remarkable. And it's a community-based education program that teaches people about signs and symptoms and being able to recognize when someone is having a mental health crisis, having a mental health concern, even just having a mental health problem or an emotional problem in general. And so what it really does is teaches people how to be more aware of others. When I say others, it can be a friend, a family member, someone you work with, someone that you may see on the street, someone maybe here at farmers market that's experiencing distress. So it really teaches you what to do, and that's important.
So how many people have you all trained in your 10 county region?
So we've been doing this since I think 2010. So a pretty good amount of time, almost since it initially started here in the U.S. And each year we do more and more people. This year we're looking at training within our fiscal year about 2,000 people, which is every year gets more and more people, and so it's pretty remarkable that we're able to do this for our community, because it really is. If you think about it from how traditional first aid and CPR started, of really being able to recognize when someone's having a physical emergency or a medical emergency, and how to respond, how to save a life.
Yeah.
And it's built on that same premise of people go through emotional problems. People have ups and downs. It's natural. It's life. Right? We all go through something.
Right.
And so wouldn't you want someone there to be there for you, to be able to recognize when you're having distress or you're having a problem, and to know how to respond? And again, it goes all the way from just having a really bad day or having a string of bad days to thinking about suicide. So it can be life-preserving, and you could save someone's life.
On the road to wellness here at the Farmers Market in downtown Gainesville, Florida, at the Bo Diddley Plaza, talking to Dr. Joe Monson from Meridian Behavioral Health. This program, you train people.
We do.
On what to look for. How much of this training actually impacts those that you're training?
A pretty good amount. So it's interesting you say that. One of the research studies that was done in Australia, as they piloted it throughout the world, actually about 10 different countries were part of the pilot program, and U.S. was one of them. And so there's been about 20 to 30 different research studies that came out of it. And one of the studies showed that people that took the training actually increased their own personal wellness. So they actually felt better after taking the training. So not even providing anything themselves, but just having greater awareness of their own issues, having greater awareness of how to help themselves. They felt better.
Yeah, having greater awareness of their own issues. So do you think people may come to the table thinking, I'm here because I'm going to be ready to help somebody else, and then they find out, I may not be as well as I thought I was?
I think we can all kind of relate to that.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. It's kind of, the medical student syndrome type of thing, where when you're going to school and you recognize things about yourself. And we put up slides about signs and symptoms of these different issues like depression and anxiety and all these type of things that people experience. And we go through these signs and symptoms, the list of what people could experience or what could present or how it could present. And everyone inevitably says, I think I have a few of those. And I say, well, I'd be worried about you if you didn't. I mean, that's part of everyday life.
It's okay. It's okay if you have some symptoms.
Okay.
Like what? Hey, Doc, can you tell me what you saw about yourself?
Well, sure. I mean, I think we all experience anxiety. And I give the example to my class. I said, how many people have experienced stress before? Every single person's hand raises, right? We all know what stress feels like, right? But stress can be a good thing. Right? It helps me get up in the morning on time. It helps me look presentable. It helps me get to work and complete my tasks. So stress can drive us to do really good things. The problem is that when stress overtakes us, when the pressure overcomes us, when it seems overwhelming, when it seems unrealistic, and we can't function. And that's one of the things that we focus in on people, is that we don't teach to diagnose people. We teach to recognize, when does it become a problem for this person?
Yeah.
How does it become a problem for this person? And then we teach them what to do.
Yeah. It's not stressful out here, it's just hot. It's 95 degrees, and there's some sun coming in right here, and I love the sun, and I'm happy for the vitamin D. You're not stressing me, Doc, I promise you.
Oh, good.
So, how can someone watching find out in their community who's offering this training for mental health first aid kits?
It's a great question, and it's easy. So there's a website. So there's a national website that the U.S. has called mentalhealthfirstaid.org. And you can go to that website.
Mentalhealthfirstaid.org.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a national website put on by Mental Health First Aid USA. And you can search for a course in your area through zip codes, basically. So you can find a training in your local area. Of course, if you're in Alachua County, we'd like you to take a course from Meridian. www.mbhci.org can take you to Meridian's website, and you can look up one of the trainings that we are offering. And actually, we're doing 4 free trainings in the month of May for our community, so we can offer this to anyone that's interested.
Yeah. So, but how much? You say you're offering 4 free trainings. Tell people what is the best way, because you train at churches.
We train anywhere.
You do corporate trainings.
Yes, ma'am.
You do nonprofit trainings.
Absolutely.
You do training if somebody says, we're having a family reunion and we would like for this to be part of our family reunion. Wouldn't that be nice?
I would love that. We'd love to engage parents and family members. I mean, that's really the nice and interesting thing about this training, is it's generalizable to anyone. Anyone can benefit from this, no matter what your role or relationship is, or what you do for a living, or what your socioeconomic status is, or your ethnicity. Anyone can take this, they can benefit from this, and they can use it immediately.
So how is this training helping to break down the stigma of mental illness?
Well, I'm glad you used that word, and we talk about this in our training a lot, because stigma is all about barriers and discrimination and preventing people from getting the help they need.
Right.
So one of the things I talk about is empathy. We talk about understanding, because to be empathetic to someone, you have to understand what they're going through. Doesn't mean you have to have the lived experience or walk through their shoes, but just trying to understand what their situation and what they're going through. And we say that if you can empathize, you can destigmatize. And that's one of the things we try to do, is that when you have compassion and care and understanding for something, it makes more sense. You know, depression in itself doesn't make sense. It's one of those unseen illnesses. If someone were to break their arm or having a medical emergency, you can physically see what's going on.
Right.
But a lot of times with depression, you can't see it on the outside. You can see some of their emotional distress, or you can see their affect or their energy, but you really can't see inside of them on what's happening. And so depression is all about what's going on inside of someone and how it affects their life.
Let's talk about depression for a little bit, if you would.
Sure.
Because, there's situational depression, there's long-term depression, chronic depression. How do you identify what you're going through? A lot of people will post on Facebook when there's a death in their family, and my friend Carmelita Brown in Jackson, Tennessee posted that in 1 week she had 3 cousins to die. And my prayers and heart goes out to my cousin Jerry Mercer. Just last week he buried his brother, and then yesterday his 42-year-old son suddenly died. So trying to deal with the depression that comes along, and not saying that Jerry is in the funeral home business. He sees a lot, but he's human.
Right.
And so I love you, Jerry, and my heart and prayers go out to you and your family and Ralph and all the Mercers there in Jackson, Tennessee. I think because we see death so much, people don't talk enough about the grieving process with death and the depression that comes along with it. And sometimes people don't even know what they're experiencing.
Well, and there's so many things. I mean, you're listing one of so many, and we talk about risk factors and warning signs, and what you're listing is a warning sign of things, events, or something that may have to happen to someone, which is kind of an environmental factor.
Yeah.
There's certainly the biological factor. There's a neurological component to it. There's our the workings of our brain and our body chemistry as a whole, the changes we go through, the life experiences that we have. All of that affects our mind, to some degree. The impact that it has on us. And so if we're talking about bullying, if we're talking about death, if we're talking about, a multitude of things that could put us at risk. Certain medications could put us at risk for depression. There's a lot of things. We go through these lists in training, and that's part of it is helping people have greater awareness for what could be these risk factors, what could be these warning signs that people are showing us. I always give the example of driving in traffic. When we're taught at a young age to be drivers, we have to know what the signs are. We have to know what these signs mean to stop, to turn, to use our signal, to pick up all these different things that are happening around us in our environment so that we can be attentive to what to do.
Yeah.
And it's the same type of analogy. We need to be attentive to other people, to people's warning signs, to people's risk factors, these things that we see that we don't always attend to, but maybe we should.
Well, what is it that I can look for? What am I supposed to be looking? Because there's going to be some grieving,
right?
And that's understandable. But what else am I supposed to be looking for? And how far down the line, down the road in the grieving process, should I start to say,
so again, it's challenging because grief is kind of its own thing, right?
Yeah.
Everyone grieves differently. And grief lasts for undetermined periods of time, depending on the person and how they cope and how they deal with it. People can deal with grief for years. What I always tell people is that here are some of the things to watch out for as far as how a person is presenting, and it all goes back to coping. How are they doing in life? How are they functioning? And it kind of goes to these 3 things. How are they relating to others? How are they doing at work and school? And how are they doing taking care of themselves? And if you look at those 3 categories, it doesn't really matter what the thing is, what the event is, or what they're dealing with, or what the diagnosis is. It doesn't really matter. I tell people, if you can focus on those 3 things of how it's impacting their life in those areas, then you can know what to watch out for, and you can know how they're responding.
And the biggest question that people have is, how do I approach that person, that friend, that coworker, that loved one, to say, are you okay? What can I do? And sometimes what can I do, you're not going to get a good answer, right?
Right, absolutely, because the answer may be nothing.
Yeah, so what do you do? What do you say to someone?
Right, so I think you just started out with it in a great way. You start with compassion.
Yeah.
You start, and of course it helps if you have a pre-existing relationship with someone, because you have that rapport built in. But even if you don't, people want you to ask, are you okay? Can I help you? Is there something I can do? Even though there may be nothing that you can do. But what it is you're lending compassion to someone. You're showing them that you care. And that's the first step, showing someone that you care. But I think you're right. It's how we approach someone. It's not always, it's kind of that cliche saying, it's not always what you say, but how you say it.
Yeah.
So true. It's so true, because we even go over in our trainings helpful things to say. And how you use language. I mean, this is really a communication model in so many different ways of how do we relate to others, how do we communicate with others, how do we express care and compassion in a way where it's going to be received to where someone says, yeah, this person gets me, they're willing to help me, they're willing to be there for me to be able to share my story or what's going on inside of me. Again, breaking down stigma.
Yeah.
Right.
Dr. Joe Monson with Behavioral Health, Meridian Behavioral Health in Gainesville, covering 10 counties in north central Florida. We are here at the downtown Gainesville Farmers Market, Bo Diddley Plaza. Music playing in the background. People are mingling around, enjoying being out in the sunshine, which is a great tool for mental health. Just getting outside some.
It's amazing. You know, we talk about misconceptions and myths and stuff of that nature, and one of the things we teach is that exercise and movement and sunlight can actually help with depression and anxiety. You know, and one of the biggest protective factors and one of the biggest helpful things is our support system, the people. You know, those supportive relationships and those people that care about us, that connectivity. You know, the Surgeon General put out a report in December, and he talks about loneliness and how loneliness can actually reduce years off of our life.
Wow.
So people are so important. They really are.
And human touch.
Sure, absolutely.
I read once that 3 hugs a day can add 7 years to your life, or something like that.
I'll believe it.
Yeah.
Human connection.
Because the studies that have been done, or the what they have observed in some orphans where babies don't get hugged, where they don't get touched, and how that impacts them. So, you know, I'm not telling you to go out and invade somebody's space, but try to get you some hugs in.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kinetic energy.
Especially, you know, people that you know and care about.
People
This is a good place to start, right?
Yeah. You know, some people may say, well, I'm not a hugger. Well, start being one if you want to feel better.
Yeah. And you can always give emotional hugs.
Give emotional hugs? How do you give emotional hug?
Well, just say, you know, you look great today. You know, I really care about you. I just want you to know how much I care about you. That's an emotional hug.
Okay.
You know?
I'll remember that. And also, you know, it's also been said that when you are having your trials and tribulations, go help somebody else.
You feel better.
You feel better when you're
It's
helping
amazing.
somebody else. And you know, there are times when I've had some issues in my life, and I just sit and look and go, Lord, I thank you for my toes. You know, I got 10 of them.
Right.
Thank you that I can walk. So just some self-talk too, I suppose.
Gratitude is important. Having perspective over life.
Yeah.
You know, because it's hard. When you go in crisis mode, everything is narrow vision. Everything is minute focus. It's really hard to see the big picture or what's around us. And so when we talk about how to help people, sometimes mirroring, you know, we can call this paraphrasing or reflecting, stuff like that. But it shows the person what they're going through, but it also shows them how much we care. Because sometimes they don't see that.
Yeah. So we've talked about depression and long-term and situational depression. Some other kinds of mental illness that people may exhibit that you talk to. What are some of the other ones that you talk to people about identifying?
Yes, I mean, we talked just briefly about stress and anxiety, right? So what people don't realize is that anxiety disorders are the most prevalent mental health disorder there is right now, or most prevalent mental illness. About 18 to 19% of the U.S. population in a given year is dealing with an anxiety disorder, or what could be diagnosed as one.
Really?
Yeah, and so again, it's think about it from a normal standpoint. It's stress. And it's an extreme amount of stress, and that can present in a lot of different ways. So we hear about obsessive compulsive disorder, you know, of having ritualistic behaviors and compulsive, or the need to do something, right? Trauma, you hear about all these different traumatic experiences of what people go through, whether it's rape or whether it's war or whether having some really severe car accident. So post-traumatic stress disorder is a real thing that people go through. Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different types of anxiety disorders. So we go through all the different lists and all the different types, because again, it helps people have greater awareness.
Yeah.
And when you have greater awareness, you have greater understanding, and then you're able to empathize a little bit better with people.
Yeah. So some of the disorders that can cause people to be a little more active, a little sometimes violent, because statistically, as we're talking about African Americans overcoming the stigma of mental illness, it's said that 95% of African Americans who do enter into mental health care do so through the emergency room, which means they've either done something harmful to themselves or somebody else, and you know, there's an encounter that puts them in the emergency room. What are some of the ways we can help our friends and loved ones who may have some more severe issues, whether it's bipolar or schizophrenia, any of those things?
Sure. So, I mean, one of the things I always, again, like to dispel myths is that actually substance use is a greater predictor of violent tendencies or violent behavior than mental health.
Substance
use.
Substance use.
Right. And so, again, trying to destigmatize our community, because there's that feeling of that individual that's out walking the streets talking to himself that may have schizophrenia or may be dealing with delusions and hallucinations, which is symptoms and characterizations of schizophrenia. That person is not always more violent. One of the statistics we tell people is that actually they're 50% more likely to be victims of violence than they are to be perpetrators of violence.
Oh, really?
So again, being more compassionate towards people, trying to be sympathetic to what they're going through, trying to understand them, trying to talk calmly, can help people.
Yeah.
And again, one of the major things is early intervention. You know, it's like with the medical aspects. The sooner we catch it, the more likely they're going to recover and recover fully.
Dr. Joe Monson with Meridian Behavioral Health in Gainesville, Florida, talking about this international effort to make us all more aware of the challenges that we face mentally, as well as the challenges that family members and friends may be facing, and just a more awareness and destigmatizing something that impacts all of us.
Absolutely.
At one time or another in our lives. And the more we understand that it can happen,
right,
the greater the possibility of us catching it and then shortening that process for our own selves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. And one of the things you said is it impacts everyone.
Yeah.
So even the people that aren't experiencing it themselves are impacted. Family members, friends, the toll that they take by watching their loved one and again, feeling kind of helpless when they don't have to be. And so certainly our goal is to teach people these risk factors, these warning signs, these symptoms, so that they can catch it and they can catch it early and we can do something about it and try to get to a quicker recovery so people can get back on with their lives. Because that is one of the myths, is that people feel like once you have a mental health issue, then that's it. But it's not true. You can be a productive citizen, you can get back to life, you can hold a job, you can have your own house, all of these type of things.
Yeah, and it's not, it doesn't have to be debilitating.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we are our brother's keeper is really what this first aid, mental health first aid kit is about.
It takes a village.
Takes a village. Yeah. We're our brother's keeper.
Absolutely. You can't do it alone. I mean, that's the
thing.
You know, one of the major statistics out there is that without intervention, on average, it takes 10 years for someone to get help by themselves with a mental health problem.
Really?
And so we want to shorten that. We want people to get help as early as possible. Professional help, supportive help, whatever the help that's going to be most beneficial to that individual. That's what we want to happen. And of course, Meridian is there to assist people, and we want people to reach out to us to get the help they need.
Yeah, and you know, I have people that are watching from all over the country. Wherever it is that you live, feel confident to be able to reach out. And some people are a little leery about reaching out because they don't want somebody putting them on medication.
Right. Well, not everyone has to be on medication, and that's kind of the great part. Again, like you said, some of it's situational that we go through. Some of it's biological, but again, kind of the quicker that we can catch it, the more likely.
Is there a bug on me? We're outside. Is there a bug?
Oh, Lord. I think you got it.
I got it. Okay.
But counseling alone has a lot of great factors, a lot of great ability for someone to recover and get through whatever they're going through without the need for medication. And again, there's some of those people that need to be on medication. I mean, severe persistent illnesses like schizophrenia and bipolar are going to need to be on medication. But just because you're on medication doesn't mean you can't live a fulfilling life.
Right. Dr. Joe Monson, thank you so much with behavioral health. In Gainesville, they cover 10 counties in Gainesville, but certainly in your community, you say that there are hundreds of thousands of people who have been trained in this mental health.
1 million.
Over 1 million people have been trained to help teach you about mental health awareness and this first aid kit. You know, we all know what the first aid kit looks like if you cut yourself.
Right.
That little red and white kit with the little cross on it. We are so looking forward to people being as comfortable with gathering information on mental health awareness for themselves and for others. You know, kind of like on the plane. You know, get the mask on your face first. Then you can help some other people.
Absolutely.
And this training certainly is a great beginning for that. And I applaud the efforts at Meridian and what you guys are doing and how you're helping to impact the community. I'm looking forward to taking one of your free classes. I mean, I don't mind paying, but since you got the free ones.
Well, absolutely. That's what we want everyone to do. If they can take it for free, sure. But it's very reasonable. And so if you want to pay and you're not able to take advantage of the free course, it's as cheap at the nonprofit rate is $30 a person. You know, incorporated $40 a person. And so you think about it, I mean, $40 to save at least one person's life, maybe multiple people's lives.
Yeah.
It's pretty realistic.
Well, I'm going to tell you, and every company should have its employees go through this.
Yeah.
When we think about workplace violence, we hear about it all the time. The shootings that have taken place on college campuses. When I was in Tennessee at the Department of Transportation, a guy came in, killed his wife, killed 2 other people, shot 2 more. She talked about what she thought he was going to do, but because people didn't listen, we have some people dead. And so I think this is an excellent tool for companies to incorporate in their HR programs.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because we actually have a good partnership here in Alachua County, and I tend to think that Alachua County is pretty progressive, but our county has actually done that. That our Board of County Commissioners has set that mandate that every county employee will be trained in mental health first aid, and so far roughly 850 county employees have been trained, and right now we're embarking on training all city employees, and we're going to strive for 1,800 city employees to be trained.
That is excellent, because what you're now doing is you're training some people. It's not just about in the workplace. They're going to be able to take that information back home.
Absolutely.
That is excellent.
Absolutely.
Love it, love it. Dr. Monson, appreciate you coming down here to the farmers market, walk around and pick you up some vittles.
And if I can say one last thing.
You can, go ahead.
One of the major initiatives,
just stay.
like I said,
you can stay all day.
is to help save someone's life. And what we know is that suicide is a major life threat to our community and to our country. It's the 10th leading cause of death for adults, and it's the 2nd leading cause of death for our youth, aged 10 to 24. And so this is a way to help save a life. And so if you do need help, and if anyone does need help right now, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K. There's help right away. It goes to a local crisis center or hotline. So it is based in your community with community resources.
Good information.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. We were Facebook. I was reading an article about how Facebook has helped to save some people's lives.
Absolutely.
Who were trying to commit suicide, but they were able to get 911 help to people. And you know, whatever it is, do get some help, because you are very important to all of us. You're part of the whole system. We need you. We need you, whether you are battling with chemical dependency, and yeah, we could talk all day, because understanding that chemical and substance abuse, I'm told, is only 10% of the problem. When somebody is using drugs and alcohol or other substances, that's only 10% of the problem.
It compounds the issue. That's the way I like to look at it.
Yeah.
And of course, if someone's dealing with an addiction, it's an illness, and it's a brain disease in a lot of ways, and it can affect people to so many different degrees. But we just have to look at it as that it's another problem. It kind of compounds the issue and amplifies it in so many different ways. I can't wait for you to take the course. I think you're really going to enjoy it.
I'm looking forward to taking the course. I really, really am. I thank you all so much for joining Dr. Monson and I hope that you will try to find a place in your community that's offering the mental health first aid kit. We all ought to have the first aid kit in case we get a cut, and we ought to have a first aid kit in our homes in case something is going on with us or a family member. And as the doctor pointed out, just the awareness can help shorten the amount of time of whatever it is that you're dealing with, or at least make you more aware that you need to get some help. We are here at the Farmers Market in downtown Gainesville. Music playing on the stage there. We will take you to the music, and I keep seeing these beautiful sunflowers walk by here. They're not walking, people are carrying them. And I'd like to take you on a little tour of the farmers market today. So we will be back in just a minute. I'm Pamela Coons on the road to wellness at the Wellness Radio TV. Remember, there is healing at the well.